Uncivilized Vitality. This is a video about one of our families of tools, categories tools called cut and dig. I'm going to go through a few examples that I have with me, and we can talk about that. So the best example of cut and dig is going to be the knife, of course. You should always have a fixed blade with you when you're in the outdoors. This would be as minimal as you could get, is a small fixed blade. This is my Great Plainsman from LT Wright. Where's the little thing? LT Wright Knife Works. I love it. I've got it in a JRE leather dangler sheath. I also have a custom Kydex sheath for my Great Plainsman, so that it hangs here as a neck knife or a belt knife, that was made by Yellowhawk Custom Kydex. And Doug makes great sheaths. I'll do a video on that later, but you have to have a belt knife. I know there's a lot of debate over different categories knives. Not going to get into that. You must have a knife. You must have a fixed blade knife as your one tool option, and build around that for cutting and digging. Now personally, I always have my fixed blade knife, and then on my belt, and I always have a small personal knife or string and cheese knife that I carry in my pocket, usually in my uniform or in my pants pocket, or it has a little clip. I'll hang that around my fire cord, so I always have that on me, right? Clip to me. I prefer, for my small personal knife that I'd use to open my little bags or cut string, is just a simple Spyderco folder. This is the Spyderco Dragonfly, and I got that in blaze orange. Since it is my personal knife, if I drop it, I can pick it up and find it. So a personal knife. I always have personal knife and a belt knife minimum when I go outdoors. Actually, I carry these almost every day anyway. The other thing I will have as an absolute necessity building up, as far as cutting and digging, is my Leatherman Signal. We've talked, I think we've got other videos about this. The Leatherman Signal is just my choice, our Uncivilized Vitality choice for a multi-tool. It's great. It's got a little fire starter. It's got a little diamond honing stone, so you can keep track of your blades. It's got, of course, its blade on there, and to help with the outdoors, it's got a little saw. It's got a little hammer pole, and of course the pliers and some of the other tools. This is part of my cutting and digging, so even in my daily life, I always have this either on my person or in my bag, and my personal knife is always with me, and I almost always am carrying a fixed blade. Seems a little excessive, but as far as the one tool option goes, I start with a fixed blade that's comfortable to carry, not too huge and Rambo-esque, just a personal preference. I can do everything I need with this, so I carry the knife, I have a personal knife on me, and then a multi-tool. So these would be the basis for my cut and dig tool requirements. Now, in addition to that, since I don't carry a great big Rambo-style knife, I will always make sure I have some sort of saw with me. This is Baco Laplander. I like this one. I like the Gomboy Silky Boys. I have one of those I carry. But this is super light, super small, folding saw. I get a lot done with this. On our group outings, we carry the collapsible Sven saws, those aluminum bucking saws for heavier wood processing for like a group. But for myself, I throw this saw in my pack, and I can take care of most of my big wood processing when I'm by myself, for wood bushcrafting things, or just processing small firewood. And combined with my belt knife, this is a great cutting option. If I were going all out, I would bring obviously all three knives, my saw, and a tomahawk. I have several tomahawks. This is the one that ends up coming with me most of the time. This is just a cold steel Trailhawk. Not the greatest quality steel, but it's got a hammer pole on there, which I rounded off the ends. I modified by cutting the handle down to a little more of a manageable length. I like tomahawks as opposed to axes because I can break them down and use this as an adze. I can dig with it if I had to. I can use this choke up and use the blade for fine work. If the stick breaks, I can use the head, the tomahawk head, the head to make another handle. So I prefer tomahawks over axes. Everybody's got their own preference. So my toolkit typically consists of, my full toolkit would consist of a tomahawk, or a full axe and Sven saw if we're doing like at the group level, a few saws and a few axes if we're up for a few days with a group. Personally, I would just take my tomahawk, my folding saw, and then those three, of course my belt knife, personal knife, and a multi-tool. So those 5 cutting instruments are on me at all times. Super minimal, I would just take my belt knife and my trowel. Let's talk about the digging part of cut and dig. I always have a small trowel. I forgot what this one is. I'll have to find out and put it in the descriptions. I got a little piece of cordage around it just for a handle. This is just my personal trowel. It's made of titanium. It's super lightweight. I mean, literally weighs nothing. And this goes in my toiletry kit, which I'll do a video on in a little bit, show you what we have there. But this is, I can use this in string and lash this to a stick with the little holes and get a little more leverage, and I've got a tiny shovel. But this hand trowel is mainly for cat holes and for personal, doing my personal business. So I always have something to dig with. If I had to, I could dig with the tomahawk or just fashion a digging stick. Besides having my personal trowel with me, it's like having my knife. I've always got this in my toilet kit. The other thing I almost always have with me is a shovel. This is the Badger. You've seen this in lots of other videos. I've had this for a long time. This case is pretty handy. This is a Cold Steel Special Forces shovel. It's a fixed shovel. It doesn't fold or anything. And I know some people really love those folding shovels, and they're great. They're a little heavy. They're a little heavier than this, but I find having this fixed handled shovel is more to my liking. I've sharpened the edges, so if I didn't bring my tomahawk, sometimes I can get by with my shovel, my saw, and a belt knife. Just depends on how minimal I'm getting when I mix up my cut and dig kit. There is a lot of anti-personnel applications for this too, but that's not that kind of video. Let's keep it not so dark. So this shovel, I can move a lot of dirt and everything with this. I love the Badger. I've had it for years, probably the 3rd handle in the last 3 decades. And then this case is pretty cool. Love my shovel. I just strap it to my pack or carry it. It's worth its weight for putting out and controlling the fires, for helping set up rain gutters for my shelters, for even splitting or limbing small trees and deadwood. Now, so I always have that, and of course my trowel. So that's my cut and dig. That's my main shovel for years. Recently, Father's Day this year, the boys bought me a new shovel, camping shovel. This is quite a bit bigger than the Badger. Obviously it's a knockoff from Cold Steel. I don't think this is by Cold Steel. Maybe it is. Maybe it's just a larger version of the Special Forces. Somebody can let us know in the comments or look that up. It's a little less packable than the Badger, but that little bit of extra handle lets me move dirt a little more quickly. It's still sharp on the edges. I've kept that ground down pretty sharp. I can actually do some fine work with that. Not a lot, like a knife, but great tool. Can't recommend having a fixed shovel highly enough when you're in the outdoors. You will move more earth than you process wood almost any time you're outdoors. So, cut and dig. And then in a group, when we go for Uncivilized Vitality events, we bring a bag with 4 or 5 Sven saws in it, 3 or 4 axes, and quite a few shovels. Not as cool as this one, but about the size of the Cold Steel Special Forces shovel, just some military shovels or folding shovels. That way in the group, we can get a lot of work done. Our rule is to work in pods or groups of 3, and every pod shares the shelter components. They also have a shovel, a saw, and an axe per 3 people. That way they can rotate through. So if we've got a dozen going on an event, we've got 4 shovels, 4 axes, 4 saws, 4 buckets, and 4 lengths of rope. So we're all prepared to work in little teams of 3. This is just my personal big shovel. I wouldn't take this on a hike, but of any distance when I'm carrying everything, I would take either the Badger, or I would just rely on my trowel and digging sticks if I'm trying to travel light. But I take this every time I go camping now since Father's Day, and I really, really enjoy it. The Badger goes with me every other time, and it lives in my Jeep, so I always have this available. And getting down to bare minimums, I have my little pocket trowel that sits in my toilet kit, which I will actually do a video on next while I got everything here. So those are my digging components. If I were going all out, I'll bring a tomahawk, unless maybe I'm hiking and I don't want to carry the hawk, or we have the full-size axes for the group. Then I'll just bring my saw, and then I always have my belt knife, multi-tool, and personal knife. So those are the cutting and digging tools. Those are my recommendations and what I carry. So leave in the comments what you carry. Some people like to rely on just one big knife for both chopping, slicing, and all that. And just it's not for me personally, but that's fine. And like I said, leave some comments, like and share, hit the notification button, and let us know what you carry in your cut and dig kit. So that's all I've got.